We're going to break down what happened at this year's High School National Championship, Division I NCAAs, and the European Winter Throwing Cup. All this and more on this week's Throw Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Throw Show. I'm, of course, your host, Jason, joined, as always, by Coach Sam Weeks, and we're going to get right into it this week as we're talking about the High School National Championship, and some of the most historic throws that we've seen in the high school ranks happened this weekend between the Nike Indoor Championship, the New Balance Indoor Championship, and we're going to start off first with probably the most impressive double I've seen of performances from a high school athlete as we see Jaslane Massie go to New York at the Armory, hit a 4-foot personal best indoors to throw 54 feet, 1653, to win the indoor championship in girls shot put. But she did not just stop there, Sam. Sam, she went back home, threw the discus 188 feet. To, I believe, be U.S. number 4 all time?
Something like that,
yeah. So it says right here on the screen, U.S. number 4 all time. We're talking about an athlete that could be graduating this senior year as a 17-meter shot putter and possibly a 200-foot discus thrower. Sam, you're going to go deeper later into this episode regarding what happened to your athletes and coaching at this year's national championship. But you were here live to witness her throw 54 feet. What did you see in her shot put? And then to see her bounce back immediately to throw one of the farthest high school discus throws of all time. What do you see in her performance here?
Yeah, so I definitely think that she came in as the dark horse. Obviously, you know, we had Addie Stiverson, GS's own, going in as the number 1, and then we had Bree Davis going in as the number 2, and Bree opened up over 50 and, you know, was definitely dominating the first 3 attempts. But Jaslane was just in the back, just kind of, you know, really trying to put one out there. I think she maybe fouled one of her first couple and then had one that secured her 3 more. But going into finals, she had her 54 and, you know, she looked shocked.
Yeah.
Like, we all knew it was a big toss. But once they read the result, it looked like she was shocked and we were all just like, wow. Because, you know, that's 4 feet over the best throw at that given point. So it was super impressive, dude. She has a cannon, dude. Like, she's just really explosive. She's very twitchy. After the competition, I went up to her and I was like, yo, like, I'm a big fan of what you do. Obviously, I saw her clip before nationals. She went 184 in the discus.
She did. Yep.
So I was like, yo, like, I love your movement. Like, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. Like, keep it up. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, just a couple days later, she goes back home and then goes 188, which is absolutely absurd to go 184 to win a national championship and then to go 188 within a couple days.
Yeah, and we looked at the results, you know, prior to her competing indoor nationals. So her personal best was 50 feet from last year.
Yeah.
And that we're going to see that with the other New Balance national champion of an athlete who just added an insane amount of distance to their personal best. But yeah, you know, she came in slightly as the underdog here at nationals, and, you know, dominated through 54 feet. You know, let's just go into her shot put real quick about where you think she's projected to end up by the end of this outdoor season, and then we'll talk about her discus. Based off of this performance at indoors, how far do you think she'll throw in the shot put outdoors?
I think she'll throw extremely far. Obviously, you know, being indoors is one thing, like, you know, but I don't know, like, once you get outdoors, like, once you're in the sun, you know, you're outside, like, it's just completely different. Yeah. I feel like outdoor throwing is significantly, like, better in all ways. And, you know, we usually see, like, better performances, you know, from, especially at the high school level, once they get outdoors. So I think, you know, she's just going to continue to just push. You know, she might even throw, I think, like, bare minimum 56. I think she'll probably close, like, like 58, maybe 60. I don't know how much they focus on shot because she's clearly really, really good at discus. And
Yeah, that's her primary.
I think she's probably going to push closer to 200 in disc. So with the commonalities between the two techniques, I think her shot will still stay consistently good, but I think they're going to be all in on discus.
Well, I think I mean, not taking away from everything she's doing, she definitely has a benefit that she is from California.
Yes.
So likely she's going to have some really good facilities and good weather too. That's for a period of time. All the top discusers in the United States were based out in California. But let's kind of take a look back at her discus specifically, because this is an historic mark and we're potentially looking at a future national record holder here. Mm-hmm. What do you see on this throw? And what do you think? Obviously, you said you think she could throw 200 this year. What do you think, if there's anything to improve on that could get her that extra distance on the discus?
What can she improve on? I think just getting a little wider out of the back. Mm-hmm. I think she gets a little wider, she'll get down sooner, mm-hmm. which will allow her to get to her power a little bit quicker. In terms, catch deeper and then transfer more. But I think just for what it is right now, like, she hits really good positions and her movement pattern is very, very consistent. Like, it's very smooth and it's very consistent. If you look at her 184 compared to her 188, the movement's very similar.
Right.
She's nice and long. She doesn't really hitch at any given point. Like, it's just very smooth. And I think that's something that you want to, like, that's where you want to be, and then it's just like attacking little things as you progress throughout the season, so you get to a point where you're moving completely, like, just efficiently.
Yeah.
And that's where bigger results will happen.
And then I guess the final pin on is, what do you think, like, maybe a younger thrower could take away from watching her? Like, what's the big thing that she does super well that you think applies to any thrower?
Execute good positions, get dialed in your movement patterns. That will allow you to add power, and that will lead to better performances. I can tell you that these performances weren't built in a day. They took a very long time to get, to where they are now. Mm-hmm. And it's just, trusting in your training, trusting in your coach, and just continuing to build, so you can get to a point, where you are a dual threat and, you're challenging, national records and you're winning national championships. So, it's just taking it one step at a time, just doing all the little things right, and then just putting it together when it matters most.
Love it. And we'll actually be switching over to New Balance Indoor Nationals. They occurred the same weekend, and we actually had athletes compete in both championships. You were actually coaching at both championships, so you had a wild weekend. So this is the number 2 weight throw all time from Kaden Hewitt, and this transformation that he posted post winning the national title is incredible. I would assume that a kid who's throwing weight this far, and the fact that he's coming close to a guy like Connor McCullough, who has mm-hmm. the high school national record. Now he's still a little bit ways away. There's like another 6 feet to go for that national record. Mm-hmm. But like, Connor's been someone who was throwing the hammer and the weight since he was like elementary school. Like mm-hmm. his father was an Olympic hammer thrower, and we're seeing him go from picking up a weight just over a year ago as a junior in high school in this video to throwing 86 feet mm-hmm. and becoming number 2 all time. I don't know if I've seen a transformation happen this dramatically over this short period of time from a thrower before. Mm-hmm. You're obviously more knowledgeable about weight than I am. What do you think of not only the performance, but just the transformation with only a year of training?
Trackflation is real. Like, these younger athletes are doing phenomenal things at an age that we would have never thought, when we were in their shoes.
It's the speed, though. It's not even just like the age. It's like the speed of progress.
Yeah, everything. Trackflation is real. That's all I can say. But, just looking at this transformation from Kaden, it's like, dude, you can see it goes back what I was saying with Jaslane, where it's like, dude, you really just got to trust in what you're doing. Get the necessary reps so that you can build better positions, better patterning, and then, you'll be in a place where you can add power. And I feel like, that's another definition of this, where it's like, in that first video, you can see, like, his movement wasn't as smooth. Like his positions were okay, but it wasn't as smooth. So the transfer of power was like okay.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, when we see the New Balance clip, like you can see like everything is just more efficient.
Yeah.
And everything just gets into the finish. And obviously, like looking at this, like it's a 2-turn, like it's really impressive. You know, it's very, I know.
Daniel Reynolds has proved that 2-turn can work. So
It's been proven that it can work. And, you know, clearly Kaden is another example of that. But dude, like, you know, he went 86 here and then doubled down at Nike and went 85. Like,
yeah,
you know, he's really good, and it just goes back to the preparation that he put, you know, to this point. So, you know, I think it's insane. I think his technique is super smooth. It's super crisp. I'm really excited to see what he does with hammer, because traditionally, or I guess in the past, like it was always thought like the transfer from weight to hammer can sometimes be a little tricky. So
right.
I'd really like to see what he does in hammer this outdoor season.
It's just 32 feet in a year gets
It's
me.
insane.
It's
really insane.
32 feet. Oh my goodness. Well done, Kaden.
Well done. Congrats.
That's awesome, and I'm looking forward to see what you do hammer outdoors. And this one was a bit of a shock of shocks. So we have right here Chris Marcel, who, and I can't believe I'm saying this, had an 8-foot shot put PR on his first throw at Nike Indoor Nationals to beat the number 1 seed in CJ Williams, who will look at his throw following this one.
Mm-hmm.
But he beat him by an inch to claim a national championship. Now, if Chris Marcel sounds familiar to you, we talked about him quite a bit last year during the outdoor season because he is the number 1 discus thrower in the United States right now. Mm-hmm. He's the best returning discus thrower. He threw 220 last year, and I think he has one of the best discus techniques I've ever seen from a high school athlete. But he threw 61 feet last year. Mm-hmm. Didn't compete indoors at all.
Yeah.
But used that as the qualifying mark to get him to nationals. 8-foot personal best, round 1, national champion in the shot put. Like I said, we'll talk about CJ's throw following this, but what do you think of a performance like that? And like, where do you think Chris Marcel goes from here?
Yeah, no, I think it's super impressive. There was a conversation between Chris and Dane, and I guess Chris was talking about he doesn't know what to expect for this competition. He said he could either throw 60 feet or he could go super far. So he just didn't know where he lined, you know, going into this competition. Clearly, you know, he was in really good shape. You know, in terms of him as a shot putter, clearly it works. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's a lot of commonalities between the technique between discus and shot. And Chris he's big. Like he's big. He has really good movement. So it doesn't surprise me. Like, I think right now it doesn't surprise me that he threw that far. I think in the moment I was like, because that's a big PR. Like
it's 8 feet.
8 feet. You don't do that.
No, that doesn't happen. That's not a thing.
That happens in a year, maybe 2 years for a lot of people. He did it in one meet.
Yeah,
that's insane. But I also think it goes back to like his focus isn't shot put; it's discus. So maybe it was always there, but I don't know. Also, I think just being in the atmosphere of just nationals where you're competing against some of the best athletes just brings out the best. You know, iron sharpens iron. And I think with Chris and CJ just competing against each other, like, you know, they push each other to a point where it's like someone's going to have to, you know, go big.
I think one thing I want to include here is like, okay, to a thrower out there who's watching, there's like 8-foot personal best. Like, how do you do that? Not only that, he did it round 1. If you look at the way he's reacting to this throw, and I think what you just said, the story that he told Dane prior to competing, tells you everything you need to know, and I think this is a huge take-home for any thrower watching. He didn't expect anything. So he just like, I'm going to go in there. I know what my technique is. I'm just going to execute. Mm-hmm. So he didn't put any pressure on himself. He just let the movement that he's honed in training do the work for him, and he just made it happen.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't he didn't like tighten up because like, oh, I need to hammer the finish so I can get this, a monster throw and win the national title. He's just like, I know what I'm working on. I know what positions I need to hit. And in some ways he gave himself like absolute freedom in that circle. And I think that's what leads to a massive personal ability like that, because how many training throws have we seen from athletes where they go bombs in warm-up throws. Mm-hmm. They have bombs in warm-ups and then tighten up as the competition goes. When I see this throw, this to me looks like an easy warm-up where he's just trying to feel the circle and the ball just flies. And if you notice, he didn't like jump up and down. He wasn't freaking out because he probably had no idea where that ball was going to go. Yeah. Like after he released it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what throwers need to like take home from a performance like this is you can't let the environment and you can't let the concept of competition negatively impact you in a way that it's going to hurt your throw. Like you can't think about tightening up. You can't stress about, where you are and what you need to do. You've put in the work and you just need to let the work do its thing. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you can kind of test that, like, especially when you work with your own athletes and you talk them through like mindset stuff for competition?
Yeah. Actually at Nike, I was talking to Dane and he brought up a quote that Krauser's dad said. I forget the exact quote, but he was like, the ones who do the best are the ones who can stay on a straight line. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think it goes back to what you just said. It's like, I think we had so much success at both nationals because we kept it very similar to what we train. Right. We did our warm up. We did our drills. We took, our warm up throws, like the same amount of warm up throws. And we just went out there and just did what we normally do at practice. Right. We didn't try to put any extra pressure on, the process or what we were doing. It was just like, we're trying to keep it as similar as possible to what we normally do so they can go out and just do what they do, right? Yeah. So I think, for anyone who, might get anxiety competing at a higher level or just in general, it's like, just stick to what you're used to and just try to keep things normal and just trust in your preparation and trust in your training and go out there and have fun.
Exactly, because you're also going to have a heightened level of like adrenaline by naturally being in the competition. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't hopefully have to, especially in a national championship. There's going to be so many people watching you. There's so many good throwers there. You're going to be naturally hyped up at a level of awareness that you won't have during practice. But like what Sam said, if you can channel that technique that you're working on in practice with that added adrenaline, not to say you're going to throw an 8-foot PR, but at least you can see what's possible based off of Chris's performance. Well done, Chris. Well done. I'm excited to see what he does outdoors, and I'll just say this before we move on to CJ, is like, now, okay, he probably has a very good chance of throwing 70 outdoors, mm-hmm. but like now it makes you wonder, he's 16 feet away from the official national record, which is held by Mason Finley. Mm-hmm. I know people in the comments are going to say it's Ryan Krauser. Yes, that is the farthest high school discus mark, but whatever the governing body is for national high school track and field, they still count Mason Finley's mark because he did it at a official high school meet, not an open meet. Mm-hmm. So, like, do you think that's possible? Or like 236, 237, 17 feet?
Trackflation is real.
Okay. You heard it from Coach Sam. So good luck, Chris. I'm really excited to see what you do in discus.
Same.
And then, of course, we've talked about CJ Williams here on the Throw Show this season. He's kind of been dominating the scene indoors for high school. And we don't want to take anything away from him. He still threw like 69 feet 1 inch. It's just, Chris was just slightly better on the day at 69.2. And that's just awesome to see top 1 and 2, 69 feet. Such a close competition. It, like we say about, trackflation, throwsflation, whatever you want to call it. This is a guy who's thrown 1960 with the 16 pound. He's thrown almost 72 feet with the 12. This guy, CJ has so much left to give to the sport as a high schooler. Like, we'll see what he does outdoors in the shot put. Mm-hmm. But, still another good solid throw, 69 feet 1 inch. What'd you see on CJ's throw here, especially seeing him in person? And like, what do you think he's going to do outdoors?
Yeah, so I actually did not get to see him in person. I was
really?
actually traveling up to New Balance when they competed.
Okay, that's fair.
But just looking at the video, like I like his movement a lot more on this toss compared to what Chris did. Now, obviously, like he got second, and I think he handled it pretty well. CJ has a YouTube video. He has a YouTube channel, CJ the Thrower. Go check it out. His video was pretty good, and he talked about it a little bit in the video. He was saying like he went in with the mentality of winning, and Chris was just the better thrower of the day. He just beat him by a little bit, but like looking at CJ's movement, I think it's very dialed in. I think it's very smooth. It just wasn't his day, which I don't want to take anything away from him. He's really good, and I think he's going to bounce back and continue to do great things, especially knowing that there are people out there who can challenge him. But in terms of movement, I think it's super dialed in. I think he's in really good shape, even though in his video he did mention he was dealing with some minor injuries. So I think even with that, he's still moving well. He's still getting very far tosses out there. It's just, I don't want to say just showing up, but just showing up. He still did extremely well, and I'm sure he's going to take this and just go on his villain arc coming outdoor season. But I think, this is phenomenal. I like his movement. Obviously, his performance is really good.
Yeah, I remember being a high school thrower, and I didn't like getting beat. And I use that for motivation all the time. So I think what you said about the villain arc, I think CJ is going to bounce back from this relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And in some ways, we might actually see a better CJ because of it. Yeah. Because now he has a fire under him where it's like he doesn't have that national championship. So it's like, well, what's he going to do outdoors? How are you going to respond? And I think what's going to do is like he's going to tighten up his training even more, and we might even see farther throws, like the best version of CJ in the next 2-3 months that maybe we wouldn't have seen if this didn't happen.
Absolutely.
So, this is where you got to be an athlete. This is where you got to be like, it's great to be a good sportsman, but it's even better to be like, take that loss, hold your head high, and be like, I'm going to come back better than ever.
Absolutely.
So good luck with you on CJ. Good luck with you, CJ. And I think other throwers can take that as well. It's like never take losses or never take performances you wish you could have done better and internalize them negatively. Use them for fuel to fire to get those next big throws so you can compete better the next time you do. Because it's the easiest thing in the world to get defeated by a performance, but that's what really makes you a champion athlete, is how you bounce back.
Absolutely.
So we're going to now get into probably your favorite part of the episode. Is we had so many garage strength athletes that you coached at this competition here. Even some that I'm like, I didn't even realize we had this many until I watched this video.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to let you just take it from here and start off with like, who did we have compete? And if my numbers are correct, we walked away with 3 different national champions this weekend. Now, one of those national champions we'll talk about after this video specifically, because this is just the Nike Indoor Championship.
Mm-hmm.
But take us through like who we're seeing here, what happened, who competed, and how did it feel to coach this many athletes at a national championship?
Yeah, so these are all of the garage strength athletes who train on site outside of Addie Stuyvesant. Mm-hmm. Both myself and Dane are the coaches who work with these athletes. We had 3 high school athletes and we had 4 middle school athletes. For high school, we had Addie Stuyvesant, we had Olivia Noecker, and we had Sophia Rivera. For our middle school athletes, we had Loveland Zudi, we had Wes Garvin, we had Landon Gobby, and Dane's son, Lincoln Miller.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's awesome to send, several athletes to nationals, but it's even better when they all do extremely well.
Yeah.
Addie and Olivia finished All-Americans. Loveland and Lincoln won a national title. Wes came back from fouling his first 2 tosses to get one on his 3rd attempt, and then PR'd on his last attempt. And then Landon opened up with a 4-foot PR and led for 5 rounds up until Lincoln sniped him on the last round. So I think overall, like, it was extremely successful. There was only one performance out of the group that I thought was like okay, but that athlete then ran it back at another national championship and ended up winning it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that after this, but like maybe just kind of briefly even go over like, you know, what was your overall experience? I know you made a video detailing, like, you sort of like vlogged your experience at both nationals. We're not going to be able to get into that video today, unfortunately, but kind of like briefly go over like what your experience, because this is the first time at the Armory, right?
Yeah, this is my first time at the Armory.
Yeah, so kind of take us through like what it was like coaching at a meet like this, and like who you thought like the big highlights were for you that you saw.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big highlights, all of them were big highlights for me personally. You know, it was my first experience at the Armory, especially coaching. A lot of these athletes, it was their first time at the Armory. I think only 2 of them had, you know, prior experience, but I think overall, like, it was really good. You know, I talked about earlier that conversation with Dane. It's like, you know, who can stay on the straightest line? And that's something that I try to do with my style of coaching. You know, if you see me coaching, like, you'll see me, like, I'm super energetic. You know, I like to laugh. I like to have fun with the athletes because that's the atmosphere that we have at practice.
Right.
And I know if I can do that at a high anxiety, high stress, you know, environment, I know that the athletes will feel a little bit of comfort because I'm there and, you know, I'm staying normal. Like, I'm keeping things, you know, relatively the same. And that's what helps them with just calming down and staying prepared and going out and just, you know, having fun and just trusting the work that we put into this point. So I feel like we did a really good job with that, and I'm extremely proud of, you know, everyone who competed. I feel like we all did really well, and we were all able to take away at least one thing that we can learn from and improve on, you know, as we transition into the outdoors.
Yeah, I think I want to just even do a special shout out to Landon, because we haven't really talked about him too much on the throw show. See a 4-foot PR from him.
4-foot PR.
And it's like him and Lincoln are like, they're it's so lucky that they both go to the same school. They both train together at Garage Strength. They're both only in 8th grade. It's like we're setting up a duo of athletes who could, you know, I'm not sure if you're going to find too many schools that are going to have a group of 2 throwers that are going to be as elite as them at the same time.
Absolutely. It's literally like the writing of a movie.
Yeah.
Like the greatest sports movie, just like, I don't know, Rocky and, you know, and so forth. But it's just phenomenal. Like, it's great to just be in a position where I get to watch them grow, because, you know, Lincoln has a very high training age. You know, obviously being Dane's son, like, he was exposed to training early on. Just
to give you an idea, like, because I don't think we've ever really explained what Lincoln's actual training age is. Back when I was a thrower, so Lincoln was born when I was in high school, right? And I trained with Dane when I was in high school, and that was over 10 years ago. Lincoln was picking up like light shots that Dane had like 3-4 pound iron balls laying around. Lincoln was throwing since he was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
Like releasing it like a shot put. That is the environment that Lincoln grew up in.
But on the other hand, Landon is fairly new to the sport.
Yeah, yes.
Landon has less than 2 years of experience, you know, of throwing. But I think just having them together and seeing the juxtaposition of the two, where it's like you have one who has a very high training age, and then you have one who has less of a training age, but they're both pushing each other to elevate, overall performances.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say is that this is a shout out to both throws. We don't have the video with us right now because I want to kind of keep showing our highlights of everyone that competed at nationals. But Bo did a really cool job on Lincoln and Landon, and he basically kind of made the comments it's like we have middle schoolers looking like pro athletes now in terms of their technique, and I think that's something that you should take a lot of pride in. The fact that you got a shout out from someone as respected as Bo in the space is that I think what I hope Garage Strength and Throws University kind of shows is like if you're willing to put in the work, like anyone can kind of throw and compete like a professional athlete. It's like obviously there's certain characteristics that goes into doing that, but it's like if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to learn more about the sport, you can start looking like these guys, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
And it's something that we offer, right? We offer training programs that are very similar to what we're doing with the on-site athletes, right? We are providing tools so that you can, one, become a better athlete, but two, become a better thrower, right? There are several characteristics that, we would go over our training program, our training system, but at the end of the day, it's like we're going to help you get to a point where you are very competitive, right? Where you can reach your goals, where you can show up at the biggest meets and, show out. So, if you really want to, improve your throwing, if you really want to show out come this outdoor season, head over to throwsuniversity.com and pick up a training program specific to you.
Yeah, and to even go off of that, it's like we got specific training that's like, we have a tiered system based on how much you want to work with us. You can get analysis from Sam. Obviously, we're seeing some of the other accounts talk about how good the technique is that Garage Strength athletes have. So it's like we do analysis, improve your technique, but we also provide the strength training program that's going to facilitate that improved technique, but get you stronger, more explosive so you can actually perform and see the progress that you're actually looking for as a thrower.
Absolutely.
But we're not done yet talking about Garage Strength athletes. And this person has such a unique story behind this throw. Is Sophia Rivera. So we've talked about Sophia before on the throw show. She actually pulled the double at the state championship last year in Pennsylvania, winning both shot put and the discus. She comes to the indoor state meet this year. Probably didn't have the result that she was hoping for. One of the other Garage Strength athletes, Olivia Noecker, actually had a massive personal best to claim her first state title. And then, as you mentioned, maybe didn't even have the Nike Indoor Championship she was hoping for. She came back the next day, goes to Boston at the New Balance Championship, improves the result she had at Nike by almost 4 feet to claim her first ever national championship. Sam, I know this one means a lot to you. You've been working with Sophia for years. Tell me what that whole experience was like, coming from indoor states to Nike Indoor Nationals and to see her walk away with a national championship at the New Balance Championship.
Yeah, so I think going into Nike, it was like, all right, I just want them to go out there and just get the experience and do what they do. And from my experience as a coach, like I think Sophia did fairly well. Now, I know that she wanted more, and I was like, okay, like let's, continue to push. Like I truly think that she wanted to make the finals and then kind of just show out. Unfortunately, it just wasn't the day for that, but it was like one of those things where it's like, all right, you got the experience now. Let's take this, let's learn from it, and let's get ready for New Balance. So, Nike was what it was. Saturday, we all traveled up to Boston, and it was just one of those things where it's like, yo, I want you to visualize, you competing at New Balance, right? I want you to visualize, from start to finish, just putting it all together. And, we kind of just left Saturday as that, and then we geared up for Sunday. Sunday morning, I just had this feeling. I was like, yo, if there's anyone who can win this, it's Sophia. Like, I was in the mindset, like, I think we can win. Now, whether that's Olivia or Sophia, I think we can win. But just something inside was like, it's going to be Sophia. If there's anyone to do it, it's her. And, that was just the mindset that I had. And like I said before, just try to stay on that straight line as we were preparing. Both of them ended up fouling their first attempt. But I was just trying to just facilitate like, yo, it's good. Like, we don't have to worry about it. just keep everything normal. But deep down, like, my heart is beating. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is not how we want to go. But both of them on their second attempt were able to get a mark that would get them, into finals. And it was just one of those things where, each throw, each attempt, they were slowly chipping away, getting a little bit further and further. Now, I think going into finals, I think Sophia was sitting third. I think Olivia was sitting sixth. But like I said, each attempt just got a little bit better and better. And on Sophia's last attempt, dude, we were just like, yo, you have nothing to lose. I want you to go in there, and I just want you to just trust in what you're doing and just punch it as hard as you can. And that's exactly what she did. Ended up claiming first, round 6, with 2 other competitors still having the chance to clip, to better that mark.
Yeah.
But everything was just in our favor, and this is a girl who fouled out her junior year of states. Ran it or her junior year of states, ran it back, won 2 championships. That outdoors. Went into this year, unfortunately got hurt. So she had to take some time off, has a job where she's working, a ton of hours. Like, she just has a lot of things going on, but she was able to get to a point where she could come back and win her first national championship, becoming a 2-time All-American, two-time. If you've seen my video, you'll see me reference that. But it was just like one of those things where it's like, there was so much adversity and there was so much against her, but she just stayed strong. She kept her head up, and she just went out there and she did her thing. And I'm extremely proud of her, and I'm extremely proud of the whole group. But it was very special to really just end off the season on an extremely high note.
Yeah, and you're from the Boston area.
I'm from the Boston area.
That was a good homecoming present.
It was super dope just being back home and then claiming our first my first national title with her, and my first national title as a coach at Throws U and Garage Strength. So it was a really cool experience, and it's something that I'll never forget.
Dude, I love it. I love it. This is why we do the sport, seeing stuff like this and helping athletes get better. And, we kind of talked about our, training program that you can kind of click the link down below, check out what we're doing so you can, you can follow our programming. You can work with Coach Sam Weeks here. Hopefully seeing similar progress to what, some of our athletes accomplished here at Garage Strength and Throws University. But to even on top of that, if you're a coach out there, and you kind of have an idea what you want to do, but you just need a bit more of a dialed in training plan, especially as it's outdoor season just started. We have the Perfect Throws Season course that you can check out, the link down below as well. And this basically is a 12-week program course. We actually give you training that you could follow. It's a template that you can follow for the whole outdoor season that works around in-season in the in-season environment where you might not have the easiest access to weight rooms, you might not have the easiest access to stay with your athletes at all times, but it gives you a perfect game plan groundwork to build into a successful outdoor spring season so that your athletes peak at the right time, whether that's a regional championship or ultimately, hopefully, a state and maybe even national championship. So if you're a coach out there and you just want that little edge you can get on the other coaches in your area, check out the Perfect Throws Season down below in the description at throwsuniversity.com. And now we're going to start talking about some of the collegiate ranks. I wanted to bring up this video because I think it's just fun to see what's going to happen. And this is also going to give us something to talk about as we lead into our next throw show that you'll see as we start leading into the championship bronze level meet in Ramona, Oklahoma, which I'm going to say right now, we'll have more details on the next episode. Throws University will also be streaming that broadcast yet again this year, all 4 days at Ramona, Oklahoma. And the face of Ramona, Oklahoma, they should have a statue for this man at this point. They already have a monument to his first world record there. That's over 74 meters. And that's Micolás Alekna. And we're getting to see some behind the scenes lifting footage, which honestly, Micolás has not posted much of his lifting. And I think he tries to be a little bit coy about how strong he is. But now we get to see, like, this is how he actually moves weight around. And we're looking at 170 kilo power clean. We're looking at 170 kilo bench press for reps. And, you know, what gets me is, and what needs to be reminded is, you know, Alekna's, I think, like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, he's big.
The speed at which he's moving the bar on both of these movements. Sam, what do you think of Alekna? What do you think of his conditioning right here? And, you know, we'll talk more about this as we do our preview episode for Oklahoma in the next 2 weeks. But what do you think is going to be possible for Micolás, especially now that he is in a new environment at Oregon?
Yeah, no. Watching this, he's strong.
Yeah.
You know,
he's a strong boy.
We like to talk about strength, you know, and its relationship with throwing, and a lot of people like to argue with that. But clearly, you know, a lot of the top pros are showing their training, and one common theme is they're all strong.
Yep.
Like,
you can't get away from it. You can't get away from it.
374 pounds for an easy power clean, and then taking that same weight and doing a bench press double.
Yeah.
That is extremely impressive. And, you know, it's the funny part. I don't even think this is his max. I don't even think it's close to his max.
No.
I actually think he pushes more than this. But, you know, for us to get a little glimpse, because they're not going to show us everything, I think it's extremely cool. And it clearly shows, like, you know, for you to really push that higher level of performance, you have to be cognizant of all areas. Obviously, technique is number one. Technique will always be number one. But you need to be strong. You need to be mobile. You need to do all the little things, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, this is showcasing some of the stuff that he does, you know, to get prepared. Like, you know, obviously this is his last year in the NCAA. And, you know, we've obviously talked about, will he win a title? And who knows? I will always say yes, but clearly it hasn't happened yet. But, you know, these are all the little things that will help build that story. You know, he's gonna finish his story, right?
Yeah.
3 years you missed out, your last year, your last opportunity. You go to the school where the championship is going to be held. You get experience in those circles. You know that circle from ins and out, all of that. This is all building to the finale, to the end of his story.
So I have 2 questions for you. First off, is Ralford still in college, or did he graduate?
I think he might be done.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But I think he might be done.
Okay. Second question. What do you think his actual maxes are?
Way more than that.
Yeah.
You remember we had him for our...
I was actually going to talk about that. So he if you haven't seen this yet, we actually have a full length interview with Micolás that we did at our throws coaches clinic back in November. And at least from the throwing side of things, he got into his lifting a little bit, but from the throwing side of things, he thinks he could throw 80 meters. Yeah. So I think that's a huge takeaway of what he thinks he can do that. But as far as like his lifting though, like what do you think those actual maxes? Like if you were just
way higher. He gave us some numbers, and when he said his numbers, I was like, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. Now, it might have been true or it might have been close, but I don't know. They just weren't what I expected, but clearly, like, he's gotten stronger. If those numbers were true, he's gotten significantly stronger, and I think, like...
I also think he looks a bit more hypertrophic, too. I think he has bigger muscle size than he did previously. I could be wrong, though. From just looking at it, it looks like he's filling out his shirt a bit more.
Yeah, well, he's getting strong, and obviously, you know, he has... he's very in tune with his technique, so I think it's just going to make him a better thrower, just in general.
I'm just going to throw out, I think he can power clean at least 185.
Probably.
It wouldn't surprise if he could power clean 190. And then I think his bench press is probably over 400 pounds for sure. Definitely.
For a single, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're doing 374 for speed doubles, yeah, you're definitely pushing more than that.
So now we're going to get into the European Winter Throwing Cup that happened in Cyprus. And I kind of pulled 2 throws from here, and it's both from Hammer on the women and men's side, because these were just massive throws that happened for countries that aren't historically, that competitive internationally in the hammer throw. And now we're looking at Catherine Jacobsen out of Denmark throwing over 75 meters. That is a huge throw, and you can see the emotion on her face. She's hugging the athletes next to her. 75.52 Danish national record. I love to see countries that we don't normally talk about in throwing perform super well at like the world class level. What did you think of her throw here?
Yeah, dude. No, I think obviously Catherine showed up. You can tell by just the emotion how much this toss, meant to her. And I think it's just like one of those things where it's like trackflation is real at all levels.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, we discuss more so on the high school level, but you are getting that inflation at all different levels, and we are getting athletes from different countries who might not have been represented at certain times in history. And it's like now they're really pushing things, and now they're making names for themselves, and they're creating these stories where it's like, dude, like, who knows, maybe she adds another 3 to 5 meters and now she's competing at the highest level. It's just like one of those things where it's like you never know. But doing this early on in the year is obviously a really good sign. It's just like continuing to build, continue to add chapters to your story, and letting it rock.
Yeah, this is a great throw. Love seeing a country like Denmark perform well. And we also have another throw from the European Throwing Cup. This is from thrower from Iceland, Hilmar Jonsson, 78 meters 3. Huge throw, especially for this early in the season in March. 78.03, like that's a big mark. We're talking about throw some years that could be challenging, for medals possibly. What do you see on his technique here?
Yeah, no, it looks smooth. One of the things is like the circle is a little bit wet, and if when you're fine tuned with your movement, that does add just a little more speed. And also just seeing other people throw far, sometimes that's just like, it just puts you in that zone where it's like, yo, like, I want to do that too, and you can just go out, you can let loose, just have fun. I feel like just the atmosphere of this competition was very fun, and look at all the marks, within that range. And it's just like going out there and doing your thing. So I think, his movement's super smooth, especially being within the rain. You got to be fine tuned. Alekna dropped a quote at our interview where he was like, wet circles exposes bad technique, and clearly, he is very in tune with his technique. He looks very dialed, very smooth, and I do think sometimes a wet circle can add to that. So, clearly, really good job from Hilmar, and just, continue to build and let it rock.
Yeah, well done, Hilmar. And I will say, I do enjoy this meet, the Winter Throwing Cup. If you have access to the European Athletics YouTube channel, they have all of these competitions streamed on the YouTube channel. And it's like, dude, you're looking at like 12 hours of content. Is just because they have like U23 championships. They have, the European championships. So they have just multiple divisions at once in all the throwing events. And it's cool to see that level of coverage dedicated to the throws. And ideally, we're going to see, same level of coverage at Ramona, Oklahoma this year, same as you did last year. So that'll be fun as well. And this is going to be something that we're talking about. You've talked a whole episode about trackflation, throwsflation. We saw this really funny meme from Everything Throws talking about the men's shot put from Division I NCAAs, as we saw 6 guys throw over 20 meters in this one meet. And I kind of wanted to look at these. And one thing I'll say about this is there's so many athletes that I feel like in the NCAA right now, it's like this is like big changing of the guard in terms of who we're going to see dominating the podium the next few years. And just athletes that I think a few years ago we never would have expected to be performing at levels like this. We're looking at CJ Licata's brother throwing over 20 meters to get 6th place. I think what shocks me is Texas Tanner out of the Air Force, a military academy, and not only that, he apparently was injured. If you look at that video right now, he has his whole knee and hip taped up, and he still threw a massive personal best. Then we have the athletes at Oregon, 2 athletes at Oregon throwing almost 20, mid 20 meters. Kaden Moran, who was the original NCAA leader this year, throwing 2040. It's crazy to see just the depth And then, of course, we'll talk about Tarek following this video, but him taking away another W in the indoor shot put. But, like, what do you think about just the depth, and also just seemed like so many different guys gamed up at the same time?
Absolutely. If you look at the top 6, we have Joe Licata, we have Texas Tanner, we have Ben Smith, we have Cade Moran, we had Kobe Lawrence, and we had Tarek Robinson O'Hagan, right? All of them went over 20. Like, that is absolutely insane. I think one of the cool things is Ben Smith and Kobe Lawrence of Oregon, they're freshmen and sophomore.
Yeah.
Like, they're very young and they're throwing this far.
Yeah.
I definitely think that, as they progress, like, they're going to really push and just become this face of this new generation of just, like, 20-plus meter throwers. But
we might see a national championship where Oregon goes 1-2.
Absolutely. At some point, it's definitely within that possibility. But I just want to give a shout out to, those 6. I want to give a shout out to everyone who competed because, these numbers are absolutely insane. But, dude, from those top 6 up, like, that's all over 20. Dude, they all showed up. I'm not very close to Joe, but I got to see him compete when he was, a little bit younger, still in high school, and to see him just grow and just perform, at the highest level or one of the higher levels. It's just like really cool. And, my buddy Duke, he's the coach over there. So it's really good to see just the two of them kind of just rise together. And, it's like, it's sick. And obviously Texas, I got to meet him last year. Ramona, that dude's jacked. Obviously Tarek, we talked about him a ton. Cade, we talked to him about him earlier on, but, Kobe, Ben, like, these guys all showed up.
Yeah, I've talked about Texas before on Throw Show. I just really, really want to hammer home the reason why it's unlikely for Academy members to be this competitive, especially in track and field, is not because they have any less of a work ethic than other throwers. In fact, they likely have more of a work ethic. But you're talking about athletes in those service academies. They're doing PT on top of the training they do for their sport. So it's like, with someone like the Air Force, like, he might be doing lots of like swimming and stuff like that, for all we know. He might be like doing things where he's like treading water at, for 30 minutes or something before he has to go train. And the fact that he's become one of the most dominant NCAA throwers in terms of all the ring events. Like, now he's a 20-meter shot putter. He threw 63 meters in the discus last year, and he threw 75 meters in the hammer.
Yeah.
He is quickly turning into one of the greatest triple threats in NCAA history. And I'm excited to see what Texas does in the outdoor season, what his moves are continuing from there. But like all these guys, and it reminds me of a competition several years back. There was a thrower named Denzel Komenencha, who was primarily a hammer thrower at Georgia. But the year that he actually pulled the double where he won the hammer and the shot put at the same meet, he threw like 20-60 in the shot. But at that meet where he went 20-60, 8th place was 20 meters. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. The difference is, I think, because these athletes are all so young. And one thing we didn't even mention is Van Dalen, who's a freshman at Florida. He was 7th place at 1968. True freshman, 1968. True, yeah. It's like, we're going to see him possibly, push out over 20 meters as a true freshman. That's something Ryan Krauser didn't even do. Like, this is the level of which we're seeing the young throwers, compete at this level is insane and can't be understated.
Absolutely.
And with that being said, we want to talk a bit more specifically about the champion, Tarek O'Hagan, a three-peat of national championships here in the shot put. Tarek throwing over 20-60 again, 20-65. He's just Mr. Consistency. Like, he knows how to perform when he needs to perform. Admittedly, and without being too without critiquing too much and being too harsh, I think he's had several throws that are better technically than this. But the reality is, no matter how well your spin or your throw looks, the goal is to throw farther than the other person next to you. And he did just that. And that's where it's like, because he has so many high competition level throws, he knows how to make throws happen to get the W. And I think that's what needs to be appreciated about Tarek. Is I almost think that we don't appreciate Tarek enough with how dominant he has been in the NCAA as a shot putter, doing weight, doing hammer. Like, he just knows what to do to make the ball go far.
Absolutely. There's no style points in throwing, right?
Yeah.
You don't get extra for, having the best technique. All that matters is you get the job done.
Yeah.
Now, having better technique is going to help you throw further, but I think in Tarek's, perspective, like, he just has a ton of experience, at these NCAA championships, obviously winning 2 before this third one. So he has a ton of experience. He's competed at U.S. nationals. Like, he has a ton of experience, and he knows how to handle himself at, a national championship. And it's not just him, like, his coach, his team, like, there are several people on his team, on his side, that can help facilitate that as well. But, obviously, like, I agree, looking at some of his other tosses, like, I think his movement was a little more dialed, but at the end of the day, like, he still got the job done, and that's all that matters.
And in my mind, it's like, this is where we need to compare throwing to other sports. Is like, I know, as, you and I, who are commentators on the internet, we're always looking at technique because, we want to see, like, what can we actually communicate to you guys at home, what you guys can do to, become better athletes, right? But, like, this is where, when you look at traditional sports and dominant champions, they always have those competitions where they have to come back and overcome adversity in the actual competition.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not look like the prettiest thing or the best performance they've ever had, but the reality is, you go in there into a meet like this, you have one job,
mm-hmm.
and that is to get the highest placing possible. And in his case, he's a multi-time champion. His goal was to win.
Yeah.
And he found a way to win. He did it round 5. And I think that's where I'm curious where Tarek's going to end up, post-collegiate and stuff like that, because we're getting close to the end of his collegiate career. And understanding that, I'm like, Tarek, he has the mindset of a champion, and that's going to take him so far if he decides to be a professional thrower.
Absolutely.
Well done, Tarek.
Well done.
And this one was really cool. We've talked about Antoinette Nabwe before, out of Minnesota, on the throw show. She had the NCAA leader, new NCAA leader, national champion, 25 meters, 13 at NCAAs. She's one of those people, we've talked about her so much. I just love to meet her in person and just, like, because she just seems like a really, really great person. And, 25 meters in the weight, that's such, that's a top, that's definitely a top 10 mark in the NCAA. Might even potentially be a top 5, because I think the NCAA record is like mid 25s to high 25s. You might know that better than me. I think she's getting pretty close to the national record. Yeah, what do you see on Antoinette's throw here and walking away with the dub?
Yeah, dude, she's been a top dog just all year.
Yeah.
Like, am I surprised? Not really. When you've been dominant, the only thing you can do is just be dominant.
Yeah.
Obviously, big congrats to her. Like, I think it's super dope, especially this video, just, embracing, I would assume, like, a teammate or something. But at the end of the day, it's just getting the job done. And, obviously she was the face, like, she was the favorite this year going into the championship. And, she was able to just do that and just, claim, her title, get the job done, finish on the highest note. So congrats once again.
Yeah, I love it. Congrats, Antoinette. And then we going into the men's weight throw, as we see Ryan Johnson, who previously broke the NCAA record at the Big Ten Championship for Iowa, now walks away with a new meet record at the NCAA Division I Championship, 25.64, backing up his huge. Honestly, I think it's only a few centimeters short of his NCAA record. But he's had one of those historic seasons in collegiate athletics that he needs to be super proud of. And I think the craziest part about Ryan, and it's important to remember this, he's only a junior.
Mm-hmm.
He has another year. So we might see the first ever 26-meter weight throw out of a collegiate from Ryan come next year. But he capped it off, another strong performance just short of his PB to break the meet record, new NCAA national champion. What do you think of Ryan's performance here, but also just the season he's had in 2026?
Yeah, so I didn't get to watch this competition live, just because I was focusing on coaching.
You had some important things.
Yeah, I had some
things
important
going.
things, but I forget where I saw this clip, but I did see this clip that he was in second right before this toss. Jeremiah Newby of Virginia hit a mark on round 5 of 24:29, which took the lead.
Yeah.
And right after he hit that mark, that's when Ryan hit this mark. So it was like one of those things where, obviously, they were building. Just looking at Ryan's series, he went 23, 23, foul, and then that 25, where Jeremiah, fouled 23, foul 23, but then went 24. It's like, hey, we've been talking about you from weeks, on, just like saying like you're the face, you got to get the job done, like you're the clear favorite to win. And now he was challenged by Jeremiah, going into this, the last couple of attempts, but he just proved, what we've been saying, where it's like, I'm the face, I'm the guy, and he did just that. It proved that he's the face, proved that he's the guy, and he ended up taking the title.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive, Ryan's career. How much further do you think he can go? You think the world record is in the cards next year?
If he has another year and he's doing what he's doing, I think 26 is definitely possible. And if you hit 26, then you're definitely making, that leap to challenging that record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I said, historic performance from Ryan. It'd be exciting to see how he does in the hammer come outdoors. So well done, Ryan.
Well done.
Loved watching this whole indoor season. And we're going to finish off today's throw show with the last of the NCAA champions. And this woman has just been dominant this whole indoor season, starting off the indoor season actually by breaking the NCAA record over 1970. Out of Sweden, we're looking at, of course, Alekna Johansson, backing up her NCAA record with a 1955 phenomenal mark, just short of that personal best. She's just been dominant this whole season. Mm-hmm. And one piece of news is on her social media, she said she's actually was named to the Swedish national team for World Indoors. Yeah. So we're going to see her compete against the big dogs in this coming week in Poland, and see where she stacks up. If she can hit like a 19 mid throw, I think that could be far enough to get top 5, and depending on the year, maybe even medal.
Yeah.
But I've sung the praises of Axelena's technique. I love the way she moves. I think she has a lot more to give. I think I'd like to see her push out over 20 meters this outdoor season. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, consistently over mid-19s. She's the best thrower in the NCAA. What do you think of her throw here?
Yeah, I think it's good. My personal opinion, she's a little blocked off.
Yeah.
And she's, a little...
But it's crazy. I was thinking the same thing, but she still threw 1955.
Yeah, it doesn't... she got the job done. It right. does matter, when you are trying to push toward 20, or, when you are trying to push towards, winning a medal, because, at the World Championships, these are women who are dialed in, who have really good technique, and
they have the championship experience.
Yes,
they know how to deal with the
And if your technique isn't isn't the most efficient, it's going to be very hard to claim a medal.
Yeah.
But obviously, Alekna is a champion. She's an Olympian. She has the experience at these higher championships. In my personal opinion, which really doesn't matter all too much, I think if that level was a little bit deeper, she'd be a little more balanced and she could get a little bit more into the finish. But at the end of the day, dude, she has really good positions. She has really good movement patterns. She's very powerful into the finish. Mm-hmm. I think those are what matters most. And I feel like if she just continues with, executing those 3 areas, she'll be fine. So,
yeah, I think it'll be cool to see what she does at indoors. I think those are all great points as to what she could improve upon for outdoors. I guess before we close out, what do you think that other throwers can pull away from watching her throw Like, what does she do really, really well that you think, like, yo, if there's something you can take away by watching her, whether you're, a female athlete, a male athlete, by watching Exelena?
I said this before and I'll say it again. Steal her entry. She does a phenomenal job of loading her left and just getting downhill with her sweep. Her sweep was nice and wide. Steal her entry. Go on her Instagram, screen record her throws, watch just how she works through the entry. She gets wide, her left is loaded, her right is nice and long. She doesn't extend off her left, but she pushes off as that right is getting down. Steal that. And just don't land blocked off.
I got nothing else to add. Well, Sam and I are so happy that you were able to stick with us for to the end of this video. And, we're going to state it again. Like, we want to make sure that you guys are throwing farther. If you're a coach, you want to make sure that we want to assist your coaching so you can get your athletes to perform better. And that's why we have products like online training that you can choose where you can get your technique analyzed. He'll write your strength programs. You'll get workout splits based on what you should throw during the season. And then for coaches out there, we have the Perfect Throws Season course that was designed for coaches so you can apply the methods that we use at Throws University to get our athletes to consistently perform well at major meets and apply it to your system and the athletes that you coach at your school. And it accommodates you based off of facilities, based off of what you have time for. If you can't get in the weight room, all of that is taken into account when it comes to designing the perfect throw season while still getting the most out of your training. And, Sam, do you have anything else you want to add in regards to what people could expect from the coaching from you, as well as maybe even the coach's course?
Yeah, I mean, all of these are just tools to help you build the perfect season, right?
Yeah.
I was able to end off the indoor season at the highest note, having 3 All-Americans, 3 national champions, and it just came down to, all of the preparation, that I've learned through my experience here at Garage Strength and, all of the experience that I'm learning as I'm continuing to talk to some of the best coaches in the world. So, right, with our training, you're going to get a lot of information. You're going to get a lot of tools that you'll be able to utilize with your athletes so that you can build the perfect season. Whether that's training, whether that's through the course, or whether that's some of our books that we have online. For anyone who really wants to learn about technique, I highly recommend the book Cues and Corrections. It highlights the glide, the rotational shot, and the rotational discus, and it identifies common errors within the technique, and provides 3 solutions. So these are all tools that we provide that are pretty relevant, or that are available for you guys. And I think if you truly want to get better, these are some of the tools that you need in your toolbox to build that perfect season.
And as a great philosopher of our time once said, the numbers don't lie, and that spells disaster for you at sacrifice. We hope you check out the programs. We hope you keep watching our videos so all of you can drop some bombs. Peace.
Big Papa Pump.